What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Kevin, and based on this channel we just break down different editing techniques. In today's video I'm going to show you how you can use the flex script to make this type of dynamic grid animation. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of this recently, and obviously you can do something like this, or I've seen it a lot in like animating brand guidelines, or even just portfolio or something into all like the little boxes and stuff, and then for it to all move dynamically. The script that we're going to be using is called Flex, and I think it was like $25, so maybe like £20. But yeah, it's well worth it. There is other ways to do this without having to pay for anything, but you'll be there for around an hour just getting the project to a point where you can actually start animating it. So this just gives you a bit of a head start, and yeah, I'd say it's definitely worth the 20 quid. Saying that, let's just jump right into it. I'm going to show you how to install it and then basically how to make that composition that we just seen. Right, so inside of After Effects, when you have your Flex download, whatever, you just come up here, scripts, run script file, and then you can just run it and it'll pop up like this. I already have it up over here, nice and big, so you can kind of see what's going on. Kind of jump into it, we're going to have to make a composition. So let's just make a 1920 by 1080, and we can just call this main comp. Make it 10 seconds, and yeah, we can just drag this into our main comp folder, and now we can get going. So you can see here in like the creator tab, you have these different shapes and stuff. So let's just grab a square and begin making a little layout that we want to use, and then we can kind of rig it up. So I'll run through this pretty quickly, but it's basically just placing squares in the layout that you want to use. So what I'm going to do is come over to my motion tools, and let's just put the anchor point in the bottom left corner. Let's just align this to the bottom like so, and we can just drag this out. Something like this. I'm just going to drag in a color palette that I have, just so we can kind of kill two birds at one stone. So while we're actually making the squares, we can have it to the right colors. So I can just leave that somewhere like here. And now let's just give this square a color. Nice. Let's just Control D on that and bring it over here. Something like this. Give it a different color. Control D. Lovely. Right, back to our first one, Control D, and let's just drag this up so all of our numbering is correct. We can just bring this down. Let's just fill this up like this and give this a color. We can duplicate this. Maybe let's just make this one a bit smaller, something like that. Bring this over, just line that up with this one, nice. Maybe something like this, duplicate it again, and then just duplicate this one last time, and let's just bring this up like so. Lovely. Just give that a color. So we have our layout there, and now we can start kind of rigging this up with the Flex script. So because this is a grid, we're going to use the grid section here, and what we can do is, because these are all similar height, we can just select these first three squares and we can rig this row. Press OK. As you can see, that's going to give us these two guides here, row 1 and row 2. This means that we can just kind of bring this up and down, and that's working correctly. Right, so now we can move on to the other sections that we have, and we can just click this one, and we're going to basically do this now individually. So we're just going to click that shape, rig that row. We can click this shape, rig row, click this one, rig row, and then the top one last, rig row. So what that's done is just giving us all these horizontal lines, basically controllers now that we can select, bring them up and down, and yeah, they're all working nicely. So now we need to bring in some of these vertical guides, and then to do that, we're just going to use the rig column section. So I'm going to do this one by one because they're all at different stages. So I'm just going to select this one, rig column, select this, rig column, and we can kind of move this guide layer just so it's in line here, but you can see what's actually going on. So we can just make it lock there, and then last but not least, this one, rig column, and we can do the same with that. We can just move this guide layer so it's in line with this. Perfect. Let's just do the same now for these. So shape 5, rig column, and then shape 6, rig, And then last but not least, shape 7 rig. So now you can see we have all these lines going horizontal and vertical, and they all basically control the sections that we've made them control, and they're all working perfectly. Yeah, it's as simple as that. So for example, let's say I come here and I select column 3 and then row 4. If I was to just now start moving these, you can kind of see the effect that we're getting. And yeah, we'll come back to that a bit later. So now we have all that done, we can basically come on to our second part, and that's going to basically be rigging the transition here. So for all this, what we can do is just shy all these layers and then just hide them. Maybe just hide them first, select them all, and then hide them all, and then just shy them. So then we'll come back to that now in a sec. So let's just build out a few more squares that we can use as a transition after we've animated everything in that last section. So happy days. Right, so what we can do is just color these, and now we can rig these up as well. But before we do that, I'm actually just going to pre-comp the last stuff just so I kind of know which is which. So all of this stuff here that we've just made, I'm going to right click this, and then maybe let's just bring it all back to around 6 seconds, and let's just pre-compose that. We can call this main animation, and we can hide that. And now let's just rig these up like before. So we're going to use the grid, and because these 3 are all the same height and there's no sections in between, we can select all 3 of them at once and then just press rig row. And then we're going to do these 2 individually like that. And now all these are working exactly how they should. Perfect. Let's just add in our columns, and then we should be good to go with the rigging. Right, so now that we have all of our vertical lines in, let's just add in the horizontal ones. So what we can do is select our first shape, and then we're just going to say rig column. That's going to give us our guides on the verticals, and we can just bring this back to here. And because it's having a bit of trouble locating which is which, we can just come into our actual shape here, and then in our grid boundaries gives you a breakdown of which is affecting which. So that's perfect for this shape, but then this shape is probably going to have a bit of trouble. So we go rig column. Yeah, so what we can do now is add in a create column ruler, put that here, and we know that now that's column 3. So then on this shape, our grid boundaries, our right is going to be column 3, like that. And then our left is going to be this one here. So this is column 2. So we can come up here, and our left is going to be column 2. And then that's perfectly calibrated like that. Hopefully the other ones are a bit simpler. So let's say rig column. No, so it has a similar issue. It's a pretty easy fix. So we can just bring this in line here. So column 4 is going to be our grid boundaries, right is going to be column 4, and then our left is going to be column 3. Perfect. And then these 2 we can do the same. Right, so now that we have all that in, all we have to do is these last 2 shapes, and what we can do is add in another line here and just match it with this shape, and that's going to be column 5. So then on these last 2 shapes, our right is going to be column 5, and our left is going to be column 4 for both. So now when we move this up and down, that's working, and when we move this left or right, that's working. And then that's fully rigged up. So we have all of our rigging done, and it's as simple as that. If something doesn't work, those little dividers here are basically the easiest way to go about it, and then just go into the shape and do it manually. But yeah, that's that part done. And what we can do is maybe unlink all of these, and then let's just pre-compose this, and we're going to call this transition. Right, so now we are going to basically just come in here and turn on all of our stuff, and now we're going to start animating this. So let's just turn off this transition grid, not going to need it. We can just give that a different color just to distinguish what's going on here, and we can start animating this now. So what we're going to do is just jump in here, and all this looks pretty messy, but don't be worrying, it's actually relatively simple. So to animate this, maybe just to make things a bit less chaotic, let's just show these. So rows and columns, we had them all here. And how we're going to animate this initially is, because I want these two squares here initially full screen, I'm just going to basically select the different rows that kind of impact these two, and let's just create a null. So what happens now is that when you move this null, you can kind of see, well, to be honest, that's just everything. So you want to be a bit more selective, but it's this is going to affect it, and then these two are going to affect it. So then just those three we're going to attach to this null, and then you can kind of see that we can go all the way over full screen, and yeah, everything is just working. First things first is let's set a keyframe on this frame, because this is what we want everything to kind of come back to. So we're going to go position and scale on this. And then we're going to move a few seconds forward, and I want this to kind of be full screen here. Then let's just ease this in as well. So flow, let's just ease this in. So you're getting something like that, which is way too quick. Don't worry, a lot of adjusting to happen here. We're actually going to move from left to right. So we're going to go over like this, and I'm just going to select these two keyframes, keyframe reverse. So we're going left to right, and then we're going to go down. Perfect. And we're also going to have this going full screen. So what you can do is just select an individual column, and maybe here this comes in, but then at the start it's going to be full screen. So it's going to go like that. And we can just ease that as well. Maybe bring it forward a bit. Right, that's looking nice. And just so we can kind of get an understanding of the tempo, we can just put in a posterize time, and then make it 12 frames a second. And now it's going to look something like this. What we can do as well is kind of just maybe set a keyframe on everything here. So maybe like a position keyframe. We're just going to press P just so I can see the position on everything, and then come forward a bit. And then if you want just something else animating, so let's just say, for example, this to like move up, and then this to come over, and bring this down, and then this further over to the side like that. And then let's just ease all these again. And when we start putting stuff into these boxes now, you'll see it all kind of come to life. But yeah, this will look really nice. Maybe let's just offset this a tiny bit just so there's something always happening. Right, so now now our base kind of grid animation is looking something like this. Lovely. And then after that, our transition is going to come on, but we'll come back to that. So now let's start filling out some of these boxes. I'm going to show you how you can do that. So we're going to just unshy everything, Control A, U, and now we can just start filling in some of these boxes. So what I'm going to do is select all of these layers, just from like our top square matte, and let's shy these, and we're going to just unshy all of these, and then bring it back in here, and we can kind of stay on top of everything now. So let's start off with this main kind of square here. Right, so I'm just going to drag and drop in a little 3D model that I have. I'm going to make it comp size, and yeah, it's just like a vase, and we're going to basically scale that up, rotate it a bit, and then put it into here in a position that we like. So something like that. Scale it up a bit more. let's just off the bat pre-compose this, and we can call this vase, and we can right click layer styles and add a color overlay, and we can just make this black. Nice. Let's just bring this down, and it's going to be in square 2, and we can just make this a track matte of square 2 and then also parent it to the actual shape of the square 2. And now you'll kind of see that kind of just moves exactly with that square, and that's looking really good. Just come in here and let's just add in some rotation on the z-axis. So give it a keyframe and then rotate it, and then maybe just rotate it a tiny bit more as well, something like that. So now we're getting something like this. Nice. Happy days. So that was square 2. So we're just going to select the 3 layers linked to that. Let's just give it a yellow color, and we can unshy them, and that gets them out of our way. Let's just bring in a star here, and I'm just going to scale this up like that. And what we can do is come into our polystar contents points, and let's just give them a few more points and add in some roundness. We can just get rid of the stroke here, and let's just place that inside of here. Just going to scale it up a bit, and just Control Alt Home just to center your anchor point. And then we can put this over our square 1. We're going to make it a matte of square 1 matte, and then we can link it to the square, and we can also add in some rotation on this if we want, so we can see how that's looking. Yeah, that's looking really nice. You just keep filling these sections out. So select all these, give them a different color, and we can just shy these, and we're on to square 3. So square 3, let's just bring in just like a letter. So let's say K. The font is Times New Roman, and I'm just going to make it regular. Control Alt Home just to center it, and something like that. Bring it down to our square 3, make it a track matte, and then actually parent it to the square 3. You can see that that's just going to link in like that, but let's add in some animation so we can have this kind of scale in from the top, and we can ease that, and then set another keyframe, and then let's just get rid of it around here. On that point, we're going to just bring in another circle. Let's just scale this down a good bit and put that in the middle, and then link it right on that keyframe to that K. So that means it should transition in perfectly like so. Lovely. And we can just maybe add wiggle 1 and 5. Maybe just give that circle that green color just so that box stays consistent. Right, that's looking cool. Now let's just drag and drop in another 3D model for that top left box, and I have a chair here that I'm going to bring in. Make it comp size and bring it down, scale it down a bit, and position it where you want it, like so. Same thing as the other 3D model, we're just going to pre-compose it. We call this chair, and I forgot to get rid of this box, so let's just color it brown, and we can just shy that layer. Bring the chair over the matte for square 4, make it a matte of square 4, and then link it to the square. You can drop a layer style over it, a color overlay. That red is actually looking really nice there, so it comes in. Lovely. Select all, give it a color, hide it. Square 5, let's just add in some text here. So we can just say like something like this. Maybe let's just add in a full stop. And then let's bring in another star, small one, and same thing again. Let's just add some of these curves and Control Alt Bone, place it up here, and we can rotate this as well. So find that position. Sorry, I forgot to link it, and bring it above. We're going to link both of them to square 5 and make them both a matte. And then on this shape, I'm just going to add in some rotation like this. We're just going to bring our text up a bit in this scene, and same with their shape. Let's bring it down a bit like so. Right, so then we have the text and our shape done. I'm just going to make this shape a tiny bit smaller and just put it up more in the corner here. So then this box kind of just reveals itself, which is really nice. And then in here, we're going to use flex one more time, and I'm going to show you the line feature. So then we've basically touched all bases. So what we can do is at this point here, we're going to basically, let's just get rid of these layers first that we've just done. So give them a color, hide them. And we're going to come to our flex matte square 6 contents and keep this tab open. We're going to do a new composition, and we're just going to copy that comp. So we're going to go 874.5 and 207. And let's just make that. I'm just going to bring in a circle, and I'm just going to scale it down. We're going to just duplicate that 5 times. I'm going to select all of our shape layers, come over to line, and let's just do rig row. I'm going to make it stretch here. So all these circles now are stretched perfectly in line, and if we click one of the shapes and increase this weight, you can kind of see what's happening, which is a nice little effect. So we can animate this by basically, you have to go in and do it individually. You can't multi-do it. So then we're going to press U on our keyboard just to bring up all of these, and we can just increase the size, the weight here, ease it. Let's just start doing this as well for some of these, so things are going nuts. So we're getting something like this now, which is pretty cool, and you can just do whatever you want here. It's more just a little abstract kind of animation. And then on our circle 4, let's just bring this out again. So now we're getting something like this. So now back in our main grid, come up to our project, and let's just take that comp 1 that we just made and bring it on top of our 6. And that should fit in perfectly at this point here. So let's just line it up. And then we're just going to do the same thing, make it a matte, and then parent it to square 6. So now we're getting something like this. I'm just going to scale this up as well, just so you're kind of seeing the start of it. And yeah, that looks pretty good. And then last but not least, we can just add in some text at the top here. So let's just give this that color and hide them. And let's just add in something like this. Nice. And we can just matte that and also parent this. See how the animation is working. Lovely. And we can actually just animate this in a bit. So what we can do is just animate position from left to right. And we can also animate opacity from 0. So in our range selector now, we can do something like this. Make a keyframe at the offset. And then here, put it on 100%. And then in advanced, we can just put this down to -100 and the ease low to 100. Then it's going to be animating in left to right. Lovely. Right, last thing we need to do is just rotate that chair around, and we can do that now in a second. Let's just color this and send this back to the comp. Lovely. Right, so now we have all of our layers with the stuff done, all colors, and yeah, the project should be a bit neater now. So we can just come into our chair here, and let's just rotate this on the Y and ease that. So now this is how everything is looking at the moment. So now we can transition out of this pretty simply, and we can do that by just enabling this grid here, we can come in here and basically bring all of these grids over to the left. And let's just give them a position keyframe on the Y and the X, and let's just come forward maybe like 2 seconds, and now we can just move these all individually over somewhere where you want. So let's just say like this, and then this is gonna follow, and then this, and then these two, and last but not least, just this last one here, bring this over like this. So now you're getting something really simple, but we're gonna ease this, and we're gonna just select all of our layers, and over in our motion tools we're just gonna sequence these out a bit like so. And you can play with how quick things are coming and going. So maybe the first one's a bit quicker, so it goes like boom. It's a bit too quick. And then this one, and then what we can do is maybe just animate this row here, so then this is coming up and it can slide up like so. Lovely. So obviously you could put more stuff in here, like any text or anything, just what we've done, but I don't think you need me to run through that. But I suppose you can see now when we get back into our comp, let's just bring our posterized time out of that and extend it. And then when you put all that together, this is what you get. Right, so I kind of breezed through that, but I feel like I broke it down in a lot more practical sense than any of the kind of example guides that the script actually has. It's really simple once you start playing around with it, but yeah, I suppose the actual effects that you can get from it are really unique. Yeah, I've seen a lot of them recently. So I hope you have enjoyed the tutorial, and yeah, cheers.